This is the TJ Hoisington Podcast. Unleash your greatness within.
If you'll just believe. Now, I'm going to share something. I normally don't go here because I stay really apolitical. And I don't mean this from a religious standpoint. But I was thinking while I was driving in, maybe I'll just share a story from one of the greatest books in the world, and there are many of them, but the Bible is one of them. But I think there's just a principle here. And I thought, I have never done this before, but I'll just share it as a thought. A thought about believing, right? Gideon was a young man when the Spirit of the Lord came to him. Said, Gideon, they've been worshiping these idols down there in the town, and I want you to go destroy idol Baal. So I'm kind of making fun with it, but later that night he grabbed his best friends together at midnight and went down into the town. They destroyed idol Baal. Gets home, sleeps in the next morning. He's living with his parents. If you read this part of the Bible, you'll see it's actually kind of funny. The whole town is in front of the house. His dad opens the door. They said, we want to kill Gideon. He destroyed our idol Baal last night. We want Gideon. This is where it's funny. His dad, if you go back and look at it in Judges, his dad says, wait a minute, you got me confused. You want to kill my son because he destroyed your idol Baal last night? And they said, yeah, he destroyed our idol Baal and we want him. And his dad says in response, well, if your idol Baal is all powerful, why don't you just let idol Baal kill my son? Now, just so you know, this is an accurate account. Well, guess what? They wait a few days and nothing happens to Gideon. So all these people are converted. So the Lord comes to him again and says, hey, Gideon, we got these mad Midianites coming over the mountains. They'll be here in 3 days. You need to gather as many men as you can because they're going to be coming over. You got to be ready to fight them. He says, well, how many will be coming over the mountains? The Spirit told him, 134,000. He goes out the next day. He gathers as many as he could from his town. Some of you will remember how many he gathered, 32,000. So what happened? Gathered 32,000. The Lord comes back to him and says, Gideon, got news for you. You have too many men. Now, just be a real human being for a second. If it was me, oh, ye of little faith, I would have said, oh, Lord, go count their men, don't count my men. Send them home, don't send me home. But he was a man of faith. And he stood up, he gathered them all together, and he said, if there's any of you that want to live afraid to die, go home. How many went home? 22,000 went home. 10,000 are left to fight an army of 134,000 in a couple days. So Gideon goes to bed that night again. The Lord comes back to him and says, Gideon, you still have too many men. That would take some faith. The Lord, he said, what do you want me to do? He says, take them down to the river. And here's what happened. Have them all drink. Those that get on their hands and knees and drink as a dog would, lapping at the water, I want you to send home. Those that scoop the water up and drink of it, I want you to keep. So there's 10,000 people. They all go down to the river. They kneel down, they drink of the water. How many people of those 10,000 got on their hands and knees and lapped at the water? 9,700, which left 300 to go fight in this battle against the mad Midianites. So later that night, they're over the mountain, they're camping in the valley. He gathers his men together. He says, this is what I want you to bring for our battle plan. I want you to bring a trumpet, and I want you to bring a lantern. Now think about it. Be human for a second. Wait a minute, Gideon? Doesn't sound like a very good battle plan. You want me to bring a sword? You want me to bring something? No, just bring a lantern and a trumpet. They were faithful people. They took him at his word. They marched out there at 2 o'clock in the morning. The Midianites are in the valley sleeping. There's no electricity then. It's not like you could then go out of your tent and flip on the light. And all of a sudden, Gideon said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to gather around the ridge, around the valley. Cover the lantern so no one can see you. And then when I give you the signal by throwing off the cover of my lantern, I want all of you, 300, to throw the covers off your lantern. And I want you to blow your trumpet for all you're worth. How many of you would be slightly nervous? They went out there, they marched out quietly, and then when the time was right, Gideon took off the cover of the lantern and bashed the lantern, which signaled the rest of them to pull off the cover of the lantern, and all of a sudden, 300 lanterns, 300 trumpets started to roar. Those Midianites got out of their tent, they couldn't see who was there, they started to fight whoever was there. The Midianites killed off the Midianites. And those that survived ran away. And Gideon knelt down with his 300 men and said, thank you. Because they were willing to believe in the unknown. They were willing to believe in possibility. They had faith beyond what their comprehension. They just believed. Right? What you may not know is at that time, a lantern and a cover to a lantern and a trumpet came in front of a whole battalion of army. So all of a sudden, when 300 lights started to shine in the middle, 2 o'clock in the morning, the Midianites looked out of their tents and said, oh no, there's 300 battalions, we're going to be destroyed. And that's exactly what happened. Extraordinary people are ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It's having faith in possibilities. But what trips us up is when we begin to believe that maybe we don't have the stuff. We don't have what it takes to succeed. Share a quick story with you, one of my favorites, because it really gives you an idea of how the thought process works. In her book, No One Can Take Your Place, Sherry Dew describes an experience she had when she gave into her self-defeating thoughts. It was a childhood dream of hers to one day play college basketball. When the date and time arrived, she went to the university gym and tried out for the 1971 women's basketball team. However, when she opened the gym door and looked inside, she saw that the girls were already running drills, and they were good. At that moment, a little voice inside of her said, "What are you thinking? You're not good enough to play ball here. You can't compete with these girls. What has gotten into your head?" She closed the door and gave herself a few moments to regain her composure. However, a few moments turned into hours as she continued pacing the hallway outside the gym, telling herself at any moment she would go in. 3 hours later, with tryouts over, she left, never having gone in. Her dream had been dashed into pieces because she gave into that negative self-talk. Well, 30 years later, in the fall of 2001, she was invited to speak to the female athletes of that same school. As part of her talk, for the first time ever, she shared the story of pacing the hallway outside the gym in 1971. When she had finished with her remarks, the women's athletic director asked Sherry if that story about never trying out for the team was really true. When Sherry said that it was, the director asked her if she knew that she was the coach of the 1971 women's basketball team. Of course Sherry knew that, because she had etched the coach's name in her mind ever since and had followed all the successful basketball and volleyball teams that she had coached. The director went on, "Would you like to know something interesting about my 1971 basketball team?" Sherry nodded that she would. The director continued, "In all my years of coaching, it is the only year I was not able to fill my roster, and we played that entire season one player short. All season I kept searching for one more girl, but I couldn't find her." Sherry learned that no one can ever take your place, not now and not ever. Remember, each one of you is unique. You're special. I know that sounds cheesy, but it's part of me. And I'm sharing part of me with you tonight. You're unique. Each one of you is destined for greatness. As Dennis Waitley would say, you have seeds of greatness, but you're going to have to control that thinking that's going on. When's the last time you upgraded your thinking? Because those negative thoughts do come in. You're not going to stop yourself from having doubting thoughts. You're not going to stop yourself from every once in a while going into a little bit of a rut, a little bit of a slump. That happens to everybody. It's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's how many times you get back up. Right? We all have those, tough moments in life. It's part of life. And so how do you respond to it? Because you're not going to be able to control it all the time. You can't always control everything in your world. So how do you respond? And that means you got to upgrade your thinking sometimes. If you got stinking thinking, as Zig Ziglar would say it, let's change it. Let's improve upon it. Stop being so cynical and be a believer, someone who's filled with hope. Hope for the future. The future's always bright if you look at it that way. All right, we upgrade our phones. We upgrade our computers on a regular basis. When are you going to upgrade your thinking? Sometimes you got to stand up inside yourself, my friends, and say, shut up. So a number of years ago, I was trying to lose some weight. And I went into the grocery store one day, and I was doing good for like a whole week. I was proud of myself. I felt good. I got off that roller coaster for a week. I was doing good. I walk in the grocery store, getting some groceries, and this voice pops in my head and says, hey, TJ, why don't you buy yourself a donut? I think to myself, I don't want to buy a donut. I've been doing good all week. I don't want to ruin it now. The voice comes back and says, that's the whole point. You've been doing good all week. You deserve a donut. I think to myself, maybe you're right. Maybe I do deserve a donut. And then I rationalize it by saying, hey, one little bite won't hurt. I'll buy the donut. I'll take one little bite out of it, and I'll discard the rest. Besides, I'm a man of discipline. I could take one bite and discard the rest. So I buy the groceries, I pay for it, I go out to the car, I put the groceries in the back, I take my little bag with the one donut in it, I put it on the passenger seat for a second as I sit down in the driver's seat and buckle the seat belt. I turn on the car, I turn on the radio, right? I mean, when I take that one bite, I want some good music. Listen, I just want to maximize the experience. So I pick that donut up. I think to myself one more time, TJ, you are a man of discipline. I opened my mouth as big as I could and I shoved that whole donut in. And in one bite, that donut was gone. Wow, those voices, sometimes you got to stand up and say, shut up. Here's the difference, right? We're all going to have those moments where those voices come in. The question is, how long do you entertain it? How long do you dwell on it? Right? So there's two things you can do to upgrade your thinking. If I can give you a little, maybe one or two thoughts here. Number one, what do you feed your mind on a regular basis? When you go home tonight, what are you going to pour into your mind? When you lay down at bed, what are you going to pour into your mind? When you wake up tomorrow, what are you going to pour into your mind? Number two, the people you associate with, the people you hang around, will have a huge impact on the quality of your thinking, because whatever you dwell on a regular basis, you will move and attract those opportunities and resources that harmonize with those thoughts.
Podcast listeners, thanks for listening. You've taken time out of your schedule, and I really appreciate it. Now do me a favor. If you like what you heard, star it. Thanks. Now go unleash your greatness within.
GreatnessWithin.com.